Oh, massive news yesterday. Huge news for Jared Curtis, the number one quarterback in the class of 2026. We know which day he's going to commit. Brian Smith, longtime recruiting guru, joining me here on the show, also host of Locked On, the portal on YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. So this has kind of become the norm, hasn't it, Brian, that we latch on to kids' social media accounts. There was a countdown clock on Jared Curtis's Instagram story, and everyone was waiting. What's going to happen? What's it going to be? And he was announcing a commitment date of May 5th for arguably, and in my view, the number one quarterback in the class of 2026. So let's just go right to the point. This is down to Oregon and Georgia. He's made that clear for quite a long time. Do you think between now and then that list could expand?
It's possible. I doubt it because remember now, he committed to the Dogs originally, very, very early. I highly doubt from being around Jared that he wants to do this 3 times. So he's probably narrowed it down to those two. And barring a coach randomly this spring leaving either Georgia or Oregon, I think it'll be those programs. The only way this changes down the line, again, coaches. As we always talk about here on the show when I come on, kids pick coaches, not schools, more often than not. So if a coach leaves one of those programs and he's committed to them later, that's all bets are off. But I highly doubt that's going to happen at UGA or Oregon at this point. So ducks or dogs.
Yeah, ducks or dogs, which is, we'll call it mildly ironic, given that Dan Lanning is Kirby Smart's protege since he was his defensive coordinator over there before getting the head coaching job with the Ducks. But obviously between now and May, those two staffs are full court press into getting Jared Curtis. Now, the interesting thing is both have been tied at one point or another to other quarterbacks in the 2026 cycle as well. Georgia had a visit from an Oklahoma commit. Oregon has been tied to Ryder Lyons, who's looking at a variety of schools, mostly West Coast based, but others have gotten in the mix like Michigan as well. So between now and May 5th, what are these staffs doing to try to get him to pick their school on that day?
I think it's just reiterating why they wanted him in the first place and why that Oregon is the place or Georgia is the place. If you really deviate course at this point, it's not going to work. His camp and the people around him were too smart for that. So I don't look for any shenanigans or anything unique. You just got to pitch who you are and pitch culture and pitch relationships. There is no special elixir here. I hope that he figures it out because it's probably gut wrenching to figure, where am I going to spend the next 3 or 4 years of my college career at, try to get the NFL and all that. And hopefully it is early May. He doesn't have to back up the date, but I really don't think it's going to change all that much.
So you've covered recruiting for a long time. In your experience talking to coaches with this stuff and trying, to get players to commit and whatnot, how often do you talk to a kid? How often do you just text him? How often do you call him? Do you try and get him out on another visit? Do you think that will happen? Like now that you have this window of, just over a month to try to get a kid to pick your school who you've already developed a relationship with over the last couple of years, what is it like for those staffs between now and then?
Well, Georgia's got the one edge that they're closer. If he wanted to take a trip, he can get in his car. But I think he's been to Georgia enough times. I really don't think going to Athens is going to make much of a difference either. So I don't really know if there's anything other than just constant communication. Georgia and Oregon have done a great job just to get in the final two. So continue with that. And maybe it's somebody else on the staff reassuring him of why they can be a difference in him. Maybe something small like that. Because this is one of those too close to call kind of recruiting races, which is fun, by the way. But I don't think you're going to fool him. Again, it comes back to that. Anything that's unusual with how you recruit him this point forward probably is going to be an albatross for you. So Kirby's experience, Dan's experience, they obviously know each other because they've worked together. This is really unique recruiting. It's unusual to see this from a West Coast school and a Georgia school that know each other like this. But Jared's got a tough decision ahead of him because I just think they're going to pound the phones, call him occasionally, but there's not going to be anything outside the box.
Well, and one thing that also makes it intriguing is he's from Tennessee. You've got Oregon and Georgia going after the top quarterback, and he's from the state of Tennessee. First question that pops in my mind when I think about that, Brian, how did the Vols not get into a closer final list here?
Faison Brandon is the kid they decided they wanted. They wanted somebody a little more mobile, and he's a freak. And he decided to commit very, very early. Some people got Brandon ahead of him. It just depends on the style of offense you want to run. I don't know if it was also a selection of these guys are both elite. Faison Brandon will make a decision earlier. We want the first option. That might have been it. I don't know. But I'm sure at some point he had a conversation with them. But I really don't remember Tennessee being a major player. Maybe it's just because Brandon fit their program quicker. I'm not sure. But it is unusual. You think of Nashville, it's like, it's probably a pretty easy pick for the Tennessee Vols. But it was always Faison Brandon.
Yeah, and the interesting thing with what you just said is that I don't look at Jared Curtis and think of him as an immobile guy. Now he's not, running around there like Jalen Milroe, where he's borderline running quarterback. But I don't watch his film and say, oh, he's just going to sit in the pocket and slice and dice. You're like, no, he moves well. He can make plays on the run. I mean, he's 6'4", 6'5", in that sort of range, 220, 230. He could bulk up even more. I mean, I've always looked at him and saw Josh Allen. That's what I think of when I look at Jared Curtis. And the power schools let Josh Allen slip through the cracks one time, and he wound up at Wyoming. I don't think that's ever going to really happen again.
Yeah, that was a really unusual circumstance. I don't know what it is, but unless you've seen Faison Brandon live, it's kind of hard to explain. But they are different quarterbacks. There's an athlete, and then there's that. So Jared is more further advanced in terms of his passing acumen, but it's not like Faison Brandon can't swing it too. So it just depends on what you want. This is a great quarterback class. In most years, there wouldn't be much discussion. There's usually a clear guy. There are 3 or 4 guys this year that could be number one, Brandon being one, Curtis being another. But the Ducks, they're lucky to be in on a kid. Again, just them alone. Getting a kid out of Tennessee that's a 5-star is weird for a school on the West Coast. But as I've said on your show many times, for the Ducks, that's kind of their thing. They're random.
Yep.
When it comes to recruiting, and by leaps and bounds. So of any state school, especially, they are the most unusual when it comes to recruiting. So it's fascinating just from that perspective. I don't know where he's going to go, and I'm not sure anybody does, especially since he's not making a quick decision after both of those 4-day visits to Athens and to Eugene. Unfortunately
for the Bulldogs, once again in the offseason, Brian, there are storylines about reckless driving incidents that are popping up, and this is a multi-year issue at this point for Kirby Smart and company, and I hope for his sake and for the sake of everybody down there, he's able to get it under control. But that's a negative headline for the Bulldogs program, and Oregon doesn't have an equivalent of that on the other side. Do you think that sort of news plays into Jared Curtis's decision at all, or is that some guys are just doing some dumb stuff and driving reckless, and I'm not going to do any of that? Does that factor into his calculation at all, you think?
For the recruits, as a general rule, the answer is no. The question is, how do the parents feel about it? And that is an internal deal. I know the players you're talking about. I actually spoke to somebody that was part of the recruitment of one of those 2 guys earlier today. But look, some parents won't allow it. At some point, it's going to hurt Georgia. It's just a matter of which recruiter recruits it is. I can't answer that second part, and that's the critical aspect of it. But yeah, Georgia is going to get hammered with negative recruiting. That is common. It's probably already started. You just can't have guys racing cars and all that stuff, especially after somebody actually died. So will that be a factor? I don't know. And again, Dan used to work with Kirby. That would be a little awkward if they use negative recruiting on that. I don't think that's going to be a part of it, but other schools will. And you don't even have to, because it's all over social media. So it's something to think about. It certainly didn't help Georgia's cause, that's for sure. So we'll see what happens, but I'd love to know the backstory to that after signing day. That's for sure.